When someone is constantly present in our lives, we often forget the quiet weight of their presence. Their laughter, their voice, their gestures, all of it becomes part of the air we breathe. It blends into our days so seamlessly that we stop noticing. We assume it will always be there. The mind grows accustomed and the heart grows comfortable. But comfort can breed blindness. When that person walks away, suddenly the silence begins to speak. What was once taken for granted becomes the echo that lingers in every empty space. Absence has a strange way of awakening the awareness that presence once numbed. When you walk away, you do not just remove your body, you remove your energy, your essence, your vibration. Energy that once filled the room now leaves behind an invisible hollow. A man who once felt secure in your closeness starts to sense the emptiness left behind. He may not understand it immediately, but something subtle shifts. The rhythm of his days loses its familiar balance. The spaces where your laughter once lived now hold only the sound of his own thoughts. This is the moment when attachment is revealed. Attachment is not love. It is the unconscious bond that forms through habit, routine, and emotional dependency. It is the way the mind clings to what it believes provides stability. A man may believe he is strong, independent, and in control, but when the energy that once surrounded him suddenly disappears, his inner structure begins to tremble. Absence shows him the invisible pillars that held him up. You were not just part of his story, you were part of his balance. It is only in your absence that he realizes how much of himself was built around your presence. In every relationship, there exists an energetic exchange. It is unseen, but deeply felt. Your presence gives warmth, comfort, and direction. You become a silent anchor, grounding the other person without even trying. But energy, when overextended, loses its natural flow. When you keep giving without receiving, your essence becomes diluted. Walking away, therefore, is not an act of punishment. It is the restoration of energy. And in that restoration, the other begins to feel the withdrawal not as rejection, but as the absence of nourishment. When absence enters, reflection begins. The mind, deprived of external stimulation, turns inward. He begins to revisit memories, moments he overlooked, gestures he ignored, words he dismissed. Every image of you begins to replay like a lesson he was too distracted to learn the first time. What he once viewed as ordinary now feels sacred. He starts to see the depth behind your silence, the meaning behind your patience, the strength behind your softness. The very qualities he once took lightly now weigh heavily on his consciousness. This is the paradox of human nature. We rarely understand the value of presence until it transforms into absence. It is through distance that we begin to perceive closeness. Just as darkness makes light visible, absence makes love tangible. When you step away, you do not only create distance, you create contrast. That contrast allows him to feel the depth of what was once hidden beneath familiarity. The more he resists it, the louder it becomes. Absence is a mirror. It reflects truth without distortion. It reveals not only what he feels for you, but also who he becomes without you. If his heart is genuine, the absence will purify his intentions. It will strip away pride, ego, and illusion. But if his connection was shallow, the absence will expose that too. He will seek distractions, chase noise, and try to fill the void with temporary comforts. Yet no matter how much he tries to suppress it, the echo of your energy remains. The beauty of absence lies in its honesty. Presence can be deceiving. It can hide attachment under routine affection. But absence leaves no space for pretense. It reveals whether what he felt was true connection or mere convenience. When the noise of everyday interaction fades, what remains is the raw essence of emotion. He begins to miss not just the moments, but the meaning behind them. He begins to long for the peace your energy brought, the grounding your presence offered. He starts to recognize that your absence is not a punishment, it is a teacher. In this awakening, he may start to change. Slowly, the absence begins to refine his perception. He starts to understand that connection is not about possession but appreciation, that love cannot be held by force. It can only be honored by awareness. Every day without you becomes a quiet reminder of how much he overlooked when you were near. The smallest memories, the tone of your laughter, the way your eyes reflected light, the peace you carried start to replay endlessly. This is not nostalgia, it is realization. Absence also teaches you. It teaches you the value of your own presence. When you step away, you start to feel the difference between giving love and draining yourself. You recognize that your energy carries power And not everyone is ready to receive it consciously. You begin to understand that sometimes walking away is not an act of leaving, it is an act of returning. Returning to balance, to peace, to yourself. And in that return, your absence becomes magnetic. The more centered you are within yourself, the more your presence is felt even when you are not there. When a man misses you, it is not only your physical form he longs for, it is the stability your energy brought, the gentleness that balanced his restlessness, the silence that calmed his chaos, the depth that made him feel seen. He may not have understood it while you were near, but absence sharpens perception. It forces the heart to see what the eyes refuse to notice. The deeper the bond, the louder the silence becomes. Absence reveals attachment because it strips away illusion. It uncovers truth through emptiness. It shows the heart where it still clings, where it still fears, and where it still needs healing. It transforms longing into awareness. In missing you, he begins to meet himself. And in walking away, you allow both of you to awaken to what presence truly meant in a world where noise is mistaken for meaning and movement is mistaken for progress. Stillness becomes a rare form of strength. When someone walks away from you, the natural impulse is to chase, to explain, to prove your worth through action. But in truth, nothing reveals your power more deeply than stillness. The quiet you hold within yourself becomes louder than any words you could speak. It is in that silence that the other person begins to hear what they were once too distracted to notice. Stillness, when mastered, becomes your most eloquent language. To remain still does not mean to do nothing. It means to hold your center when everything around you tries to pull you out of balance. It means to resist the temptation to act from fear, to avoid reaching out from desperation, and to stay rooted in awareness. A man begins to miss you not when you cry out for attention, but when you no longer seek it. The energy of pursuit pushes him away, while the energy of stillness draws him closer. The paradox is that what the mind cannot chase, it begins to crave. Stillness creates mystery. It removes the predictability that once made you accessible. When you withdraw from explaining, convincing, or proving, you create space that allows the other person to feel the weight of your absence. The mind cannot tolerate silence for long. It fills it with curiosity, reflection, and eventually, realization. In stillness, you no longer communicate with words. You communicate through energy. Every moment of silence becomes a mirror reflecting his actions, his choices, his intentions. When you stop pursuing, you remove the fuel that sustained his complacency. As long as you chase, he remains comfortable. As long as you explain, he remains unaccountable. But when you become silent, he is forced to face the echo of his own behavior. Stillness turns into a teacher. It confronts him with his own emotional immaturity, his inability to value what was freely given. The quiet becomes a storm within him. What once felt like freedom now feels like loss, because your stillness carries the energy of finality. Stillness is not indifference, it is awareness without reaction. It is knowing that your value does not need validation. The one who remains still is not cold, they are conscious. They have realized that the act of chasing someone who walks away is not love, but fear disguised as devotion. When you stop moving toward him, you start moving toward yourself. Your energy begins to return home, and as it returns, it grows stronger, calmer, and more radiant. The still mind becomes magnetic. It draws attention without effort, respect without demand, and love without begging. The world often tells us that to win love, we must fight for it. But fighting keeps us trapped in resistance. True connection cannot exist in struggle. It flows through harmony. When you become still, you stop resisting the natural rhythm of life. You accept what is without trying to force what isn't. That acceptance is not weakness, it is wisdom. It says, I trust what belongs to me will find me, and what does not will fade away. This quiet faith carries more power than any desperate action ever could. When a man feels your stillness after your departure, he begins to notice how deeply his energy depended on your response. He remembers the comfort of your voice, the reassurance of your attention, the warmth of your understanding. Now, in your quiet absence, he is left alone with himself. The silence becomes a mirror reflecting his own emptiness. What once felt like control begins to crumble. He starts to question his choices, his behavior, his pride. Stillness forces him to confront the truth that he was never the one in control. The energy you carried was. Stillness is not about ignoring him. It is about returning to your own breath. When you sit in silence, when you move with intention, when you stop reacting, you begin to reclaim your inner rhythm. Every breath becomes a declaration that you are enough. Every quiet moment becomes a boundary that speaks without words. The more you root yourself in stillness, the more you elevate your energy beyond his reach. He feels the difference. The same calmness that once soothed him now haunts him because it no longer belongs to him. In the silence of your stillness, he begins to feel the absence of your energy not as distance, but as gravity. Your stillness pulls on his awareness. It calls him inward, forcing him to feel instead of think. The mind can argue, but the heart cannot escape what it feels. Stillness speaks directly to the heart. It bypasses logic and reaches into the soul. It does not shout, it whispers. And that whisper becomes louder with time. Stillness also transforms you. When you stop reacting to what hurts, you start healing from it. The space that once held anxiety begins to hold peace. You no longer need to prove your worth through pursuit because you begin to see that your worth was never lost. You learn that love given freely is sacred, but love that demands chasing is illusion. Stillness teaches discernment. It teaches when to hold on, when to release, and when to let silence do the speaking. When you are still, you become untouchable. Not because you are distant, but because you are aligned. You stop depending on someone else's recognition to feel whole. The power returns to your presence. The same man who once ignored your efforts begins to feel drawn to your calm. He starts to miss what he can no longer control. Your silence becomes a reflection of the peace he lacks within himself. The energy you no longer give outward begins to awaken something inside him. Curiosity, regret, awareness. The truth is, pursuit can never create longing, but stillness can, because pursuit gives reassurance, while stillness gives space for realization. The mind begins to fill that space with thoughts, the heart fills it with emotion, and slowly he starts to understand what your presence truly meant. Stillness becomes the quiet mirror that reflects everything he once overlooked. In stillness, you no longer chase validation, you embody it. You stop demanding clarity, you become clarity. You stop running toward others. You stand still and let what's meant for you return in its own time. Stillness is not a void. It is full of meaning. It is the space between two heartbeats, the calm between two storms, the silence between two souls where truth is finally heard. It is in that sacred silence that the one who once took your energy for granted begins to hear what your words could never express. Loss has a way of revealing what love could not express. When someone leaves, when a presence you once felt so vividly suddenly disappears, you do not just lose a person, you lose the reflection they held for you. Every connection in life acts as a mirror, showing you parts of yourself you could not see on your own. When that mirror is taken away, what remains is the raw truth of your own being. The silence after someone's departure is not just emptiness, it is the sound of your soul being asked to look inward. When a man begins to feel the loss of a woman who walked away, it is not always her physical absence that disturbs him most. It is what her absence forces him to see. She was once the reflection of his emotional state, his confidence, his affection, even his insecurities. In her presence, he could project what he wished to be. But when she leaves, that mirror shatters. He is left alone with his own image, stripped of validation, stripped of illusion. What he begins to miss is not only her presence, but the version of himself that felt alive beside her. Loss is the teacher that no one invites but everyone eventually learns from. It strips away what is comfortable and exposes what is essential. When you walk away, you do not just leave him with memories, you leave him with himself. The reflection he sees now is unfamiliar. Without your energy softening his edges, he begins to feel the weight of his own silence, his own emptiness. The laughter that once echoed between you now echoes within him, as if the universe is reminding him of the sound of what he lost. Every relationship carries within it a hidden mirror. Two souls meet, and through each other, they learn who they are. One provides balance to the other, one gives warmth, the other receives. When harmony exists, both reflections are clear. But when imbalance grows, the mirror begins to distort. The more one gives without being seen, the more the other loses awareness of what they are receiving. Eventually, blindness becomes normal. The presence is consumed, but the value is forgotten. And only when that mirror disappears, only when she walks away, does he see what he truly looked like through her eyes. The mirror of loss is never kind at first. It shows the unfiltered truth. It shows how carelessness replaces appreciation, how pride overshadows tenderness, how ego blinds the heart from gratitude. The man who once thought he had control now faces the reflection of his own fragility. He begins to replay moments he dismissed, words he left unsaid, feelings he suppressed. Each memory becomes a reflection of what could have been. He realizes too late that her presence was not ordinary, it was sacred, and the sacred was lost because he never paused to see it. Loss removes illusion. It peels away every layer of distraction and exposes the core of attachment. It reveals that what he misses is not just her body, not just her voice, but the way her energy made him feel whole. Her presence reflected his better nature, his compassion, his tenderness, his depth. Without her, those qualities begin to fade from his awareness. He feels a distance not only from her, but from the best parts of himself. This is why the pain feels so heavy. It is not only grief for another person, but grief for a version of oneself that existed only in their presence. When a woman walks away in silence, her absence becomes a mirror that does not lie. It shows him what he took for granted. It shows the moments where his pride mattered more than connection, where his words wounded more than healed. The reflection he now faces is his own creation. In her stillness, he begins to hear the echoes of his own choices. The loss becomes a dialogue between what was real and what was ignored. But the mirror of loss is not only for him, it is also for her. When she leaves, she too must face her own reflection. One that reveals where she gave too much, where she stayed too long, where she ignored her own needs in the name of love. The mirror shows her that her compassion was not weakness, but wisdom that was misplaced. It teaches her that walking away was not abandonment, it was recognition. Recognition that her worth could not be reflected in someone who refused to see it. The mirror of loss holds two truths. It shows him the cost of neglect and her the value of presence. It humbles one and heals the other. Through it, both are offered a chance to grow. Loss, when accepted consciously, becomes transformation. It breaks the illusion that love can be possessed and teaches that love in its purest form can only be reflected. When one leaves, the other is forced to look within for what they once sought without. In the beginning, loss feels like emptiness, but with time it becomes revelation. The reflection grows clear as the heart softens. The man who once took comfort in her presence begins to understand that he did not just lose a person. He lost an opportunity to know himself through her reflection. Each day without her becomes a lesson in humility. The moments of silence become a meditation on value. He learns that love is not sustained by ownership but by awareness. And awareness, once lost, can only be reclaimed through the mirror of loss. There is a strange beauty in this reflection. It does not flatter, it refines. It takes away what was false to reveal what is true. Loss makes space for honesty. It silences pride and awakens gratitude. It shows him that what he misses most is not her attention, but her authenticity. The way she made him feel seen, understood, and human. The mirror of loss reveals that connection is not measured by presence alone, but by awareness of what that presence brings. And as he looks deeper into the emptiness left behind, he begins to see fragments of his own soul reflected back. The pain becomes a doorway. Through it, he encounters humility, vulnerability, and perhaps redemption. For in losing her, he meets himself for the first time. The mirror that once showed her face now shows his own. It is no longer about who left. It is about what was awakened within the one who remains. Every connection we form in life is an exchange of energy, invisible yet deeply felt. Two people meet, and between them flows an unseen current, a rhythm of giving and receiving that nourishes both. When one person gives more than they receive, that current begins to weaken. The balance shifts. The energy once shared freely starts to feel heavy. When you finally choose to withdraw your energy, it is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of awakening. What was once taken for granted becomes visible, and what was once invisible becomes undeniable. Energy is the most honest language of the universe. You can hide emotions behind words, disguise intentions behind gestures, but you cannot hide the vibration you emit. When you pour energy into someone, your time, your care, your understanding, you become part of their emotional ecosystem. They start to rely on your presence, often without realizing it. Your voice calms them, your patience grounds them, your empathy fills the quiet spaces within them. But the moment you withdraw that energy, the emptiness they feel is not rejection. It is the absence of the energy that once sustained them. A man begins to awaken when the energy that once surrounded him is gone. At first, he may not understand what is missing. The days feel the same, the world still turns, but something subtle within him feels incomplete. It is not your messages or your presence he misses. It is the frequency of your energy. He misses the way your calm softened his chaos, the way your presence brought him balance. Energy moves silently, but its absence creates a roar inside the soul. When you withdraw, awareness begins. Energy teaches in ways that words never can. When you stop feeding someone with attention, they begin to see the truth of what they lost. The awareness that awakens is not only about you, it is about themselves. They start to realize how unconsciously they consumed your energy without gratitude. The reflection is uncomfortable. The same energy that once gave them peace now becomes a mirror of their own imbalance. The void left behind forces them to feel their own inner emptiness. Energy withdrawal is not punishment, it is purification. When your energy becomes overly entangled with another, it loses clarity. You start to feel drained, uncertain, or emotionally unstable, not because something is wrong with you, but because your vibration is trying to sustain what no longer resonates. To withdraw your energy is to call your spirit back home. It is an inward movement, a silent act of reclaiming your own rhythm. You begin to return to your own breath, your own pulse, your own essence, and in doing so, your awareness sharpens. Awareness awakens when energy returns to its source. You begin to notice the subtle shifts that went unnoticed before. You see where your energy flowed freely and where it was blocked. You see who uplifted your vibration and who drained it. You start to understand that love without reciprocity is not balance, it is depletion. The awakening that follows is not angry, it is peaceful. You no longer seek validation from others because your awareness reminds you that energy given consciously always finds its way back to you, even if it takes time. When he feels your energy no longer flowing toward him, he feels a kind of silence that cannot be ignored. It is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of reflection. He begins to notice how deeply your energy had blended into his own. The comfort, the reassurance, the emotional warmth, all of it came from a presence he thought would always remain. Now, in the stillness, he becomes aware of how much your energy carried him. That awareness humbles him. It awakens a longing not rooted in desire, but in recognition. He begins to understand what your presence truly meant. The moment you withdraw your energy, the dynamics of the connection change completely. The roles that once existed dissolve. The chaser and the chased disappear. Only awareness remains. It is here that truth begins to surface. Without your energy sustaining his emotional comfort, he must face himself. He must meet the parts of his own being that your presence once softened. The energy he once borrowed must now be generated from within. And this is where real transformation begins. Awareness is born in the space that energy leaves behind. It is in that gap that reflection happens. The one who once depended on your light begins to understand the source of that light. He starts to see that it was never about the words you said or the actions you took. It was about the vibration you carried. The awareness that comes from this realization is profound. It teaches that connection is not about physical closeness, but about energetic harmony. When you reclaim your energy, your awareness expands beyond the limits of attachment. You start to see how every relationship mirrors your inner frequency. Those who resonate with your vibration feel natural and effortless, while those who clash with it create resistance and fatigue. You learn that protecting your energy is not selfish, it is sacred. It preserves your clarity and keeps your heart aligned with truth. The more aware you become, the more you understand that not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some are meant to awaken through your withdrawal, not through your presence. As your energy withdraws, your aura changes. The same presence that was once available now becomes rare, and rarity creates value. He feels your distance not just as loss, but as transformation. The version of you he once knew no longer exists in the same form. You have evolved, and evolution changes vibration. The awareness that awakens in him may come as confusion, regret, or realization, but it always comes. He begins to understand that what he misses is not just you, but the frequency of peace your energy carried. Energy withdrawn does not disappear. It transforms, it returns to its source, becomes lighter, clearer, and more potent. The awareness that follows is like dawn breaking after a long night. You begin to see your connections not through need, but through truth. You recognize that what is meant for you will never drain you, and what drains you was never meant to stay. The moment you stop giving energy to what does not reciprocate, the universe redirects that energy towards something that aligns with your soul. Awareness awakened through energy withdrawal is the awakening of power. It is the realization that peace does not come from being needed. It comes from being aligned. When you stop forcing connections, you allow energy to flow naturally. Those meant to walk beside you will meet you at your frequency. Those who are not will drift away. Your stillness becomes magnetic because your energy is whole again. The awakening that follows is not loud, it is silent, but its silence transforms everything it touches, like love in its truest form flows like water. It cannot be commanded, contained, or controlled. It moves where it is welcome, and it withers where it is confined. Yet, so many people spend their lives trying to force love into places where it does not naturally belong. They try to convince, to prove, to chase, believing that effort can replace alignment. But love is not something that blooms under pressure, it is something that awakens under presence. The more one tries to force love, the further it drifts away, because love only exists where it is freely felt. When two souls meet, love either grows through resonance or fades through resistance. You cannot manufacture emotion, nor can you demand affection from another heart that has not awakened to you. The truth is that love cannot be negotiated. It either expands naturally or remains dormant. A man may care, he may desire, he may even be drawn to the comfort of your energy. But if his heart has not opened, no amount of giving can make it bloom. The forcing of love is the beginning of suffering, for it ignores one of the most sacred laws of connection. Love arises through recognition, not persuasion. When you try to force love, what you are really forcing is awareness. You are trying to make someone see your value before they are ready to perceive it. But awareness cannot be borrowed. It must arise from within. If a person's soul has not yet reached the vibration that matches your depth, your presence will confuse them. They will feel your love, but they will not know what to do with it. They may take it, misuse it, or overlook it, not because you are unworthy, but because their awareness has not yet awakened to that frequency. To force love is to exhaust your spirit. You begin to bend your nature, silence your needs, and alter your truth in hopes of being understood. But real love does not ask you to shrink. It invites you to expand. When you start to lose yourself in the process of trying to be loved, you are no longer practicing love. You are practicing attachment. Love gives space, attachment clings. Love accepts truth, attachment fears it. The difference between the two lies in awareness. Awareness recognizes that love cannot be taken. It can only be shared by two hearts moving at the same rhythm. The one who truly feels your energy will not need convincing. He will sense the depth of your presence without explanation. Your silence will speak louder than your efforts. Your energy will move him in ways that logic cannot explain. This is the essence of love. It is not forced into the mind through reasoning, but felt in the soul through vibration. When he feels it, he will know. When he does not, no amount of effort will awaken him before his time. This is why patience becomes the guardian of love. Love reveals itself only when both hearts are ready to meet. To love someone who is not ready to feel is like pouring water into a closed vessel. No matter how pure your intention, it will overflow and go to waste. Love is not lost in such moments. It simply waits. It waits for alignment. It waits for the soul to catch up to what the heart already knows. The one who cannot feel your love today may feel its echo tomorrow when awareness finally opens within him. That is why love should never be forced. It operates on divine timing, not personal desire. When you stop trying to make someone love you, you begin to experience the real nature of love, freedom. You free yourself from the illusion that you must perform to be worthy. You begin to understand that love is not earned through effort, but revealed through authenticity. When you stand in your truth, your energy vibrates differently. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer demand, you align. Love that is felt, not forced, flows effortlessly because it is not bound by expectation. It does not need validation, it simply exists, breathing through every moment of connection. The love that is forced becomes a transaction. The love that is felt becomes transformation. One drains energy, the other expands it. Forced love creates anxiety because it is rooted in fear. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of being unseen. But when love is felt, it brings peace. You no longer worry about outcomes because the feeling itself is enough. Love that is real does not beg to be seen. It radiates naturally. It does not ask for promises. It builds trust through presence. It does not chase understanding. It creates it through silence. When you love without forcing, you begin to embody grace. You understand that every soul moves at its own pace, that every connection has its own timing. Some hearts meet to awaken each other, others meet to teach detachment. In both, love exists, but not always in the form you desire. Sometimes love appears not to stay, but to remind you of what you carry within yourself. It shows you the depth of your compassion, the strength of your patience, the beauty of your surrender. When you stop forcing, you start seeing love not as something you seek, but as something you are. And when you withdraw your force, when you release control, awareness blooms in both directions. He begins to see what was once invisible. The stillness of your absence, the peace in your distance, the quiet power of your non-chasing presence, all of it starts to echo inside him. He begins to feel the energy that was once overlooked. What was invisible in motion becomes visible in silence. The love he could not feel when you offered it freely now begins to awaken within him as realization. This is the mysterious nature of love. It is often felt most deeply when it is no longer being forced upon us. Love that is real is never demanded. It arises from mutual recognition, a resonance between souls that requires no justification. When it is present, it needs no proof. When it is absent, no amount of trying can summon it. For love cannot be built through effort alone. It is born through alignment. To force it is to block it. To let it flow is to experience its truth. Love cannot be possessed because it was never meant to belong. It was meant to be shared. And when it is shared from a place of awareness, it becomes something eternal, not dependent on outcome, not confined by circumstance, but alive through feeling alone. There is a quiet strength in the moment you decide to walk away. It is not anger that leads you to leave, nor bitterness. It is clarity. To walk away is not to abandon, it is to return to yourself. It is an act of deep presence because it requires awareness, courage, and self-respect. When you walk away, you are not disappearing. You are becoming visible to yourself again. The world teaches us that staying is noble, that holding on defines love. But sometimes walking away is the highest expression of it. Walking away is not about turning your back on someone. It is about facing yourself. When you walk away, you acknowledge that your energy has been stretched too thin, that your giving has become survival, not harmony. You begin to realize that staying in spaces where your peace is compromised is not loyalty, it is self-neglect. The act of walking away demands presence because it forces you to be fully aware of what your soul feels. You can no longer pretend that everything is fine when your spirit is restless. The mind may resist, but the body always knows when it is time to move on. Presence means awareness, and awareness means truth. The truth is that not every connection is meant to last forever. Some exist to teach, to awaken, to mirror, and then to end. When you stay beyond the point of growth, your energy begins to decay. What once nurtured your heart now drains it. Walking away becomes necessary not because love is gone, but because balance is. It is the recognition that your presence is sacred, and not every place deserves to hold it. When you walk away from a man, you withdraw more than your physical presence. You remove your energy, your essence, your calm, your warmth. At first, he might not understand what has changed. The silence feels foreign, the distance confusing. But soon the reality of your absence begins to reflect back to him. He begins to feel what he could not see when you were near. Your walking away becomes his mirror. It shows him where he failed to listen, where he overlooked your worth, where he mistook your patience for permanence. To walk away with awareness is to reclaim your energy from where it has been scattered. Every moment you gave, every word you spoke, every effort you made, all of it carried your essence. When it is unreciprocated, it begins to deplete you. Walking away is the moment that energy returns home. It is the moment you stop leaking your power into spaces that do not nurture it. This is why walking away feels both painful and peaceful. It is a death of attachment and the birth of awareness. Stillness lives inside the act of walking away. It is not a hurried escape, but a slow, conscious movement. You are no longer running from something. You are walking toward yourself. That step, though invisible to others, carries a vibration that changes everything. It tells the universe that you are ready to live in alignment, not confusion. It signals that you have learned the lesson, and the lesson has completed its purpose. In that awareness, you reclaim your freedom. Walking away is an act of self-presence because it requires you to feel everything you once avoided. It demands honesty. It invites you to confront the truth of your emotions without judgment. The tears that come are not weakness, they are cleansing. They wash away the residue of expectation and illusion. Every step away from what drains you is a step closer to the clarity that was waiting behind the noise. In that clarity, you begin to hear your own voice again, the voice that once whispered beneath the chaos, reminding you that peace is not found in holding on, but in letting go consciously. When you walk away, you shift the energy in the connection. You remove the familiar pattern of pursuit and reaction. Your absence becomes a mirror that reveals what your presence concealed. The man who once took your constancy for granted begins to feel the weight of it. He begins to sense how much your presence carried. The same silence that once felt like comfort now feels like consequence. Walking away becomes the unspoken lesson that words could never teach. Many mistake walking away for indifference, but it is the opposite. It is awareness elevated beyond attachment. It is love transformed into wisdom. To walk away is to love yourself enough to say, I will not stay where my soul is not seen. It is to choose inner peace over external approval. This kind of decision can only be made from presence, not pride. Pride wants to win, presence wants to heal. Pride seeks control, presence seeks freedom. The act of walking away teaches both sides something profound. For you, it teaches that your energy is your responsibility, that peace is not something given, but something guarded. For him, it teaches that silence has power, that absence has voice. He begins to understand that your love was never weak, it was patient. That your kindness was never naive, it was strength misunderstood. The realization does not come immediately. It comes slowly as your energy fades from his world. Only then does he see what your presence truly meant. Walking away also shifts your relationship with time. While you were attached, time felt heavy, every moment awaiting. But when you step away, time becomes your ally. Each day brings more clarity, more lightness. You start to feel your energy returning piece by piece. You begin to realize that walking away was not a loss. It was a realignment. You were not leaving him behind. You were returning to the rhythm of your own soul. Presence is not just about being where you are. It is about being who you are. When you walk away, you reclaim that authenticity. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You stop negotiating your value. You simply exist in your truth. That truth radiates far beyond your physical distance. It can be felt even in silence. Your absence becomes a form of communication. A quiet declaration that your peace is non-negotiable. Walking away is the highest form of self-love because it asks for no validation. It does not need to be understood or approved. It is a silent act of alignment, a return to center. It says, I am here. I see myself clearly now. That awareness ripples outward, transforming how you move, how you speak, and how you connect. The energy that was once scattered now becomes whole again. The presence you once gave to another now expands within you. In that stillness, you realize that walking away was never about distance. It was about finally coming home to yourself,